Hey, hi Godwin. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. How are
My
you?
pleasure. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well.
This is
I'm
awesome.
very,
You are the man that I said to myself in times of crisis or hardship, we need someone to come and slap our brains, open us up to opportunities.
thank
Oh, with
you.
the news and the media and the world is going through such a tough time. I think August for a lot of people was hard, just the media's news, the outlook, the
Yeah,
reality of things. We've gone through something, and we've all gone through it together, I think.
that's true.
Uh,
That's true. That's
yeah.
true.
So,
That,
and one of the things that makes people worried, I suppose, is finances, their money. They
mm,
are running funny when you hear that retailers are making people redundant
that's right.
as self-employed people or contractors thinking if they're going to work for me,
Yeah,
how long is it going to last? What's the impact going to be?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I suppose so. I mean, I suppose, naturally, when you have disasters like this and it affects the economy, of
Mm,
course, people's lives are affected. It's
mm,
just, it's just how things are.
mm,
It's sort of unfortunate, but if you look at the world economy, it's not unique for for the UK.
mm,
In Brazil, for example, their GDP has reduced by 9.7%. Would you believe that in the second quarter of 2020 because of the coronavirus? Uh,
mm,
Australia, they are now facing a recession, the first for 28 years.
mm,
In the UK, in April of this year, we had a 20% drop in our GDP. This
mm,
is this is very unique since record began. We've never had this statistics before. So you're quite right that it's
mm,
very fortunate that we are here. But
mm.
it's what you do with it that matters.
Yes, yes. And, I know I've got people from Zimbabwe, Nigeria, in the UK who are going to be watching.
Yeah,
One of the reasons I love you, Godwin, is because you're a global entrepreneur. You do property investment all over the world, in America,
yeah,
Africa, in the United Kingdom.
yes.
And it takes a lot of boldness to step into new territories and new markets. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I know, but our audience don't know. Tell us a little bit about who is Godwin.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks very much. Well, I'm Godwin Okri. I started out as a lawyer. I was called to the bar, and then I ran my law firm as a solicitor. And then we had some difficulties. Then, as a result of that, I then moved into real estate. So, I, like everybody else, have had ups and downs, but it's what you do when you're down that determines your growth, basically. So when you're down there, what do you do? What strategies do you take? How do you see yourself? What are the narratives that come into your head? How you deal with that determines who you are. Greatness is not judged from a position of height. It's judged from a position of low and how you beat all odds to rise. That's true greatness.
Wow, that's awesome. So you changed career paths, and so to speak. After studying, it's not easy to become a lawyer. Do your
It,
bar exams, invested so much in that area. Issues arose, and you decided to move. I mean,
it,
tell us about the process you went through with that. Was it a smooth transition?
it
What did
was
you
really,
have to do to your mindset to be able to make that shift?
yeah. Well, it was very difficult, but like I say, most of your listeners, if you're listening and you have issues or difficulties, be it death or divorce, or you've lost your job because of coronavirus impact and the pandemic and all of that. I think my news to you is that I am the narrative. I am the example where you go through difficulty and you try and work your way out. Tendayi, it wasn't easy. I mean, my law firm in Southeast London, I ran that for 10 years, and we were doing I was a duty solicitor, a criminal solicitor. I used to do a lot of repossessed properties from all or most of the banks in the UK. So you can imagine that magnitude of work. But we stumbled into some difficulty. And as a result of that, I was forced to close my law firm and merge with another law firm. So it was from the high to the low. And that period was very, very difficult for me, because the what caused the difficulty was absolutely little to do with me, but a lot to do with my failure to supervise my staff. So that was even more painful. And I said, you know what, I'm starting from ground zero. I believe in prayer. I believe there's a God. I believe that God's listen, he has prayers. I believe in Christ. But I also believe in hard work and determination. Because as you know, if you pray and you don't work, I'm sorry, you will starve. I'm not a bearer of bad news. It's just the truth. You have to bring your own footprint to the world. And the song has to be sung about what you've brought to the market. You can't go to the market empty-handed and expect miracle. I'm sorry, it does not work. With that philosophy, I had to do that. I had to say, you know what, this is failing. Where do I go? And I began to think of all areas of areas of work, from investing in derivatives, stocks and shares, gold. Then I studied the real estate market and found out that it's a niche market. It's a, if you look at, I think one of the writings from Harvard Business Code, Harvard Business Report made it very clear that real estate is one of the fastest means of wealth creation. And it amazes me. Today, if you look at the total value of the residential real estate market, it's about £6 trillion. That's about the size of the Japanese economy. Can you see? So it's a huge market. I studied the market, I understood the market, and I tried to conquer the market.
Wow, that is amazing. So, you had made some losses literally back on the ground. So you had to recover. And you were not about to play small games. You thought, where can I use my expertise, my knowledge, my skill? And you had to do some research. You had to reapply yourself to a new area to conquer.
That's true. That's exactly true. And I used to read a lot of books. I'm a lawyer, but I still read a lot of business books. And I read The Psychology of Success in Business. That tells you how do you go from ground zero to ground top to top. How do you do that? How do people like Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, how did he do it? Michael Bloomberg, who was made redundant, and he then formed Bloomberg TV and became a billionaire. How did they do it? It's all the same. You have to look at the niche and say to yourself, what footprint do I bring to this market? That's the question. What footprint do I imprint in this market? It's a USP, your unique selling point. It's notorious in business as it is in the Bible. You have to do it.
And, for someone who's out there, who's thinking, so is that linked to purpose? Who's thinking, I don't know what footprint I can put out there. There's a tendency to almost just look at what everyone else is doing and try and dive into that.
Yes.
Many people hop from one thing to another, never really leaving any footprints because they never put their feet down long enough in an area to have those footprints established. Someone who's thinking, how do I even begin to decide where I can make footprints, so I can make headway, in what area, in what department? I can see the link between, dealing with, repossessed properties. So you had an inkling of the market and the field. So it wasn't literally starting again, although
Yeah.
there's something to be said. There may be people who can try and start in a totally different area, new field. But there was a little carrot hanging in that area for you, which didn't make the experience you gained in the past redundant. Do you see what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
What would you say to someone who's wanting to understand, well, how do I get to understand? Where can I go? What sort
Okay,
of
I'm not surprised that let's just take a step back for a bit. The reason why people today are asking the question, where can I go, is because the world economy is contracting. The world economy is shrinking because of this global coronavirus pandemic. So that's now leading a lot of people to ask that very question. As you know, we've got the furlough scheme, the job rotation scheme, where the British government is throwing a lot of monies to follow staff, and even for businesses, which I'm sure we'll come to later on, because I want to talk economics. I want to talk business. I want to talk pure macroeconomical concepts. We're going to talk about it. But for the moment, if you're in difficulty as a result of what I've just told, of just result of this coronavirus, you want to ask yourself, well, my job, I'm about to lose my job, or I've lost my job, or I'm an SME, I'm a small to medium entrepreneur, and my business is not working. How do I get that working? What do I do? There's a whole variety of things that you want to do. For example, if you're employed and you're about to lose your job, just think about creating new skills, expanding your old skills. By expanding your old skills, I mean updating your old skills. You have, in this economy, you have to think outside the box. If you don't, you'll be left behind, and that footprint that I've been mentioning throughout this interview would be missing. You have to bring a footprint. So that's important to those who are employed. If you're self-employed or SME, or you run a business and you see your business contracting because of this climate that we're in, again, you have to think about your market. What is it that would make your market gel? It may be that, like they would say in Harvard Business School, they talk about cost manipulation strategy. So if you're a small business, you have to think of cost manipulation strategy. You have to play with the issue of cost. You have to, I'm going to reduce my cost here to beat my competitors. And in neoclassical economics, the lower the price, the higher the demand in classical economics. So think of that, and then think about those ways in which you could bring back those footfall to your possible to do. And it is very possible indeed. I mean, there are many billionaires whose name you're well familiar with. A lot of them made their money during recession, not during times, during recession.
Yes.
I'm just going to call one person who Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, he's worth $84 billion today. Now he went to Columbia University. He makes his money from buying businesses that are failing. You get me? He makes his money from buying failing, unsuccessful businesses. What does he do? He turns them around and sell them for a profit. He's now $1 billion. So just because there's a downturn in the economy, in the economic cycle, means nothing. Do not accept the narrative. You have to find your narrative and bring your footprint to the marketplace.
Awesome. Oh my days. Yeah. I think one of the things I love Warren Buffett says, be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. The news is whoa, oh my days. But you almost have to allow your brain to think the opposite of what the story looks like, what everyone else is saying, to think, how am I going to bring my footprint to the marketplace?
Yes. This great people as they are, and greatness is not imprinted on anyone's head. Anyone can be great insofar as you're willing to have a vision, have a plan, write out those plans, and pursue them to the end. In spite of all odds, is the definition of greatness. There is no other way of defining greatness. I mean, I remember when I was little, I used to watch, forgive me, but I used to watch Muhammad Ali. And the greatest fight was when he was vulnerable. His greatest fight, his greatest victories was when he was vulnerable. That transformed him from an ordinary boxer to arguably the greatest boxer that's ever lived.
Ever, yeah. Wow. So you're saying that when you're most vulnerable, what is it about being vulnerable that gives you that competitive edge? What would you say? Because a lot of people we're all vulnerable, but a lot of people are more vulnerable than others in this time. What would you say it is that you have to capitalize on in those moments of vulnerability that gives you that competitive edge?
Necessity is the mother of invention. When you're vulnerable, you have to take necessary steps because you have no other way. You either sink, you either swim, or you've completed it for me. Thank you. Or you sink. If you know that if you sink, you would not be alive, then you better then have to swim. How do you swim? You say to yourself, what is my strength? What is it that people say about me? There are some people, they're very good cooks. They're at home, they invite friends having barbecue. They're very good cooks. They don't know they're very good cooks, but people say to them, you're a very good cook. Well, how about if you're from a restaurant? There are others who are very caring. They're so amazing, so caring. How about if you want to care home? There are others who are very methodical, they're good at imparting knowledge. Run a school. So what you have is in your hands. You just have to know how to find it. And you find it by what a lot of people say you are. People say, do you know you're good at this? Do you know you're good at that? If more than 7 people say it, that's a corroboration. The evidence is corroborated by those 7 or 9 people. That's your niche. So that's the footprint that you bring into the marketplace. So if you're employed and money is coming in, you wouldn't think about your strength because you're distracted by this money is coming in. The moment money disappears, you're now having a clean slate. It is the time when you're thinking, oh God, now what next?
What am I gonna do?
So at your low moment is your best moment. Because if you
run.
Yes, if money is coming in, not a lot, but enough, it is a distraction for you because it makes you lazy from thinking. When you have nothing, your thinking mentality triples, doubles, quadruple.
Oh, you're reminding me, Godwin. When I started out, I had potentially some crutches that I thought to myself, okay, if this fails, I'll have this backup plan. Every backup plan was taken off. I mean, I went to the bus stop and I was like, hi, my name is Tendayi. I will send you this. It's like, I needed to pay the nursery fees tomorrow. This child needs milk. If I don't do it, so you just run.
So your story is exactly that. Necessity is the mother of invention. Necessity means desperation is the mother of invention. Desperation is I am pressed to the corner is the mother of invention. I'm pressed to the corner means I have nowhere else to go. Is the mother of invention. When you come to that stage, that's a blessing because it then forces you to think.
Wow. It's a reset, literally. Many people have been reset this year. The thing that they were up to, the business that they were working, even the people they had depended on. I mean, it's terrible. You've seen all those numbers of people who've lost their lives. Those are people who were breadwinners. Those were people who were supplying a space in individuals' lives, and that's literally been pulled from under the rug, leaving a lot of people in that place of desperation. And there's that. You said there's sink or swim. The inclination when in my native language we say wapererwa, like it's like really wapererwa means like
Yes.
where do I go? Where do I start? It takes
Yeah.
something to make you say, I gotta get up and run. The natural inclination is to fall into depression, is to think it's game over, I might as well die. You know, what would you say? Because you said you've been to those places before. What was it that you had to that helped you in those low moments? I mean, for me, it was my daughter seeing this young life that I was like,
Yes.
she's counting on me. I'm the one
Yes.
who got to put this food.
Yes.
I have no. This life is smiling, thinking, "Mama's gonna bring some. I gotta go." You know,
Yes.
for someone
Yes.
maybe who doesn't have something so tangible. I mean, what keys, one or two things that could you say can have that allow that shift in perception or that shift in, you know, from I'm sinking and boy, I'm on antidepressants and then, you know, I'm doomed to the life of benefits and relying on the state and it's woe is me, you know, because that can be an excuse that we continue to use. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, and you mustn't let it. You
Yeah.
mustn't let it. I think for you, you know, you thought about your daughter. That you thought about your daughter, and then that had this immediate effect on you and sprung you into life, into action. I think for me, it's the mental battle. I keep saying you have to say things to yourself. You have to look at the mirror and say to yourself, "I have to make it." You have to think of that mental battle. If you can't win the mental battle in your head, you can't win it physically. You have to win it in your head first. You have to deal with the battle in your head first before you could deal with the natural battle you see in front of you. And I had to do that. I had to confront that. And in addition to that, I was surrounded by positive people. Who you surround yourself with is so important. If you have negative people, it's going to be really difficult because what goes into these ears when you're in your room will continue to reverberate. It continues to reverberate, and what goes in is very important. So if you have a lot of negative news, just walk away. Don't let it get in because the moment it gets in, it's so difficult to get out of your thoughts. It is so difficult. So those two things are fundamental for me.
So yeah, we've got books, we've got choices of positive. Nowadays, we've got social media conversations like this that people can tap into. Guys, share this with your friends and your family. You know that there is a rising up that can happen from a challenging place. I want to talk to you a little bit about. You mentioned earlier about the business cycle. I know you're into property and you do property in America, Nigeria, and UK. How has your business been affected in this time, you know, and what things are you having to do to readjust, realign? You know, one of the things that we always talk about once you start making money is don't put your eggs in all one basket, diversify your portfolio so that if the egg cracks, you don't lose everything. Tell us a little bit about your industry and your market.
Well, my market is the real estate market. As you know, the real estate market is one of the fastest market to make money in. Is the number one market. Look at the size. The quantum of the total value of a residential market in the UK is £9 trillion. 9 trillion. That's the size of the Japanese economy. 59 landlords make 59 billion pounds annually in rental income. So it's a huge market, and I saw this market, and I thought, you know, this is a market to come into. So I spent time researching the market. I researched the market here in the UK. I researched the market in America. As you know, I'm a realtor, a certified realtor in the US. We do a lot of work for some of the banks in the US. And I also I'm a realtor in Nigeria and, of course, in South Africa. So this market is a good market to be in. What I would say to people who are looking to come into this market is that just think of buying properties below market value, and you could do that. There are lots of this pandemic is going to cause people to wanting to sell their properties. So whilst people are selling, you are buying. When people are buying, you are selling. Warren Buffett, did you say? When people are going, you're coming. That's the way to do it. And this market offers you that. It is open for everyone. If you're a first time buyer, you could get the right, you could have the right, under the right to buy scheme, you benefit there. So there's all benefits for everyone insofar as you're mentally ready. I know that there are horror stories of people who try to do some kind of agreement and it doesn't work, or there are all horror stories of people who buy properties and they've had their fingers burned. It's because they haven't researched the market properly. I guarantee you, enter into any trade or any profession. If you don't research any of those professions, the result will be the same.
Yes.
And so the real estate market is no different. So just because people had their fingers burnt is not a narrative for you to accept that the market is not working. The market, of course, is working. And that's why you have 2 million buy-to-let investor in the private rental sector. 2 million, making 2 trillion pounds a year. So 2 million people making 2 trillion. You do the maths.
That's the place to be. And one of the things that I remember you mentioning at one of the events that we went to, it was almost, I keep saying, it was a paradigm shift for many of us, because your standard is go to the estate agents, look at properties there, and you were like, when there's a lot of bad news, that's opportunity time. You need to be rubbing your hands saying, hey, there are a lot of deals on the market. Visit your county town hall.
Yes.
Look at people, distressed sellers.
Yes.
Because you are actually positioned and ready to make a difference. So again, the mindset is the key thing, isn't it? I mean, I'm a broker, I'm a mortgage broker, so
you're a mortgage broker. You know the deal.
Typically, when the market is high and it's high, everybody's in there. It's times like now when you're like, guys, now is the time, and they're like, oh well, let's see how things go. It's the same with the stock market and other opportunities, but. As individuals, I think we're wired. When there's a sale in Debenhams, we're in there running, going to get deals. But these are not, they're not things that will generate us an income. So for liabilities, it's very easy to think there's a sale. But for things that have the opportunity to increase or appreciate, the same doesn't apply, and I wonder why.
I think you put it so eloquently. I wonder why myself. And the reason why is because for some section of the community, they don't understand it. But in another section of the community, they understand investment. In England, some sectors, or some ethnic groups do not understand the benefit and importance of investment, making plans for your children and your children. They don't think of that. But in other community, in the UK, they do understand it. I don't want to mention community, but you know what I mean. And the real reason for that is the lack of interest and education. In some communities, when Debenhams, I don't want to call names, but when some stores are doing sales, you see a lot of these communities there. But when there is conferences on businesses, Harvard Business, when there are business conferences, they're not there. And you see a different composition of community there. And you wonder, where is the asset shift? The asset is shifting to those who know and is moving away from who spend. If you know, the asset will shift to you. If you spend, the asset will shift away from you. See, so that's basically it. So think of investment more and cut down your spend.
I can barely hear you. Do you want to?
Can you?
Yeah.
Sorry, one second.
That's okay.
Beg your pardon.
Fine. I think you're using your. Sorry. Yeah. I think you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
So Brian is like legacy call. Yeah. Thinking about the next generation, generational thinking, something that I'm very passionate about. I've just written a workbook about building generational wealth and financial literacy, where I cover these topics: your relationship with money, overcoming hurdles like procrastination, fear, and inability to seek knowledge. Something that you mentioned earlier, that have a look at the market and say, where are things going now? We're at a time, I think, where things have shifted greatly. the online digital space, digital assets are huge, you know?
It's amazing.
And people are sweating them and sweating them, and we're not even in the game. Can you imagine?
No, I mean we're sweating this, we're sweating the small stuff. We're not sweating the big stuff. And that's why, if you look at, I mean, there are a lot of my clients now who are listening from Nigeria. There are a lot of people who are listening from South Africa. A lot of my clients who are in the US who are listening in to this conversation. It's very important that you have to think of your own niche market and use, you know, the online mechanism that's open to you, because now everything is now digitalized, everything is now information technology. You have to be thinking, even in motor cars, now there is now electric, not petrol. The changes is amazing, and if you don't try and catch up, you'll be left behind. And if you're left behind in economics, that's a big problem. You've got to be in the game. You've got to up your game.
You mentioned something there that meant an opening up, the ability to go online. So we're speaking to somebody maybe in Nigeria who's a publisher or who's, and their market looks like it's dried up. People are complaining, but they have access now suddenly. They're watching this here. So what stops them to research, hey, how many people are requiring services of my publishing work in the
Exactly.
UK? How big is the pie in the UK? What are the requirements? Because I think one of the other things that's required, like you said, upgrade yourself. The way you do business in Nigeria and the way you do business in the UK is different. Maybe people in the UK expect, clearer communication, or I don't know, you know what I mean? So that research can allow you to access and penetrate into areas that you couldn't before and actually smash it.
Well, you see, what I say to people, it's very dangerous to run your business in one market. If you run your business in just United Kingdom, you're asking for trouble. Because what happens if we have a recession in the UK? What happens to your business? You can't. You have to diversify product as well as you diversify location. So either you have one product with different location, or you have one location with different product, right? But you cannot have one product in one location. It just, you're asking for trouble, and which is the reason why we diversify. We do real estate around the world, so it's very important, and let me just refer you to the statistics from the Office of National Statistics. The number is that for you to be a millionaire or a billionaire and you're employed, your chances of becoming a billionaire is 0.01%. 0.01%.
It's not going to happen.
So what does that tell you?
You need to buy a lottery ticket. That's why you didn't go and buy lottery tickets.
So when people wonder that, why is this not working for me? Why is that not working? Because you're not asking the right questions. And when you ask the right question, you've not put enough desire to chase it. I've seen people, you've advised them on real estate. They know the benefit. 2 years later, you say to them, have you bought anything? Because, well, no. Well, it's because they know the information, but they're not mentally forcing themselves to do it. And the way you force yourself to do it is you grab a pen and a paper and write it down and put a date beside it. This time, 2021, I want to buy this property. These are the steps I'm going to take. From this to this, I would have raised this money. From that to that, and every month you tick it off and tick it off. That's where you force yourself. It's a bit like exercise. I mean, for example, I do exercise every other day. Where I live is a hill. I run up the hill. I try and lose my stomach fat. And I wake up at 4:30 every morning. 4:30 in the morning, that's discipline. Sometimes I wake up and I literally hated it. But when you force yourself, after a while, it becomes a habit. And that's why for some people, success is a habit. If you go to Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, and if you say to him, if you lose your money today, would you be a billionaire next year or 2 years? He will tell you, absolutely yes. Because he understands the blueprint. It takes determination. So it's no good knowing the information. If you don't force yourself to apply it, then it's as if you don't know it. It's like it's ground zero to me. So that's the narrative I want to. So no matter where you are, think of the niche market. What do you bring into the market? And then say to yourself, I want to differentiate. What I want my product to be different. So let me borrow your profession. Yeah. Okay. Say I'm a mortgage broker. You know that there are about, I think it's about 1.7 million brokers at the moment, if not more. Last time I checked. Yeah. So there are so many brokers. But why is my brokerage different from everyone else's? I will tell you. Because if I'm a mortgage broker and I am trying to get mortgages for people, I would also, in that mortgage product, introduce something else called mortgage education. Because for me to get a client, I have to educate my client, because a lot of my clients will come and say, I want a mortgage, but they won't get the mortgage. They eventually don't get the mortgage. So I go one step back and do mortgage education, where I'm paid to train them on how to get the mortgage. That training then forces them mentally to then literally then take the mortgage to then get the property. So I have two sources of income. Can you see? And that's why today we've got the Okri Property Show. The Okri Property Show is an international TV show. We're on Sky 186, we're speaking to the BBC at the moment, trying to see what we could do with the BBC. And of course, we're speaking to 1 or 2 channels in the US to make it very international. But for the moment, we're on Sky Television. We have about 1.2 million views per week. So it's huge. How did I do it? Well, I started in real estate. I started in actual real estate. And I'm saying to myself, how do I force people to come into real estate?
You've disappeared a bit.
Okay,
there we go.
Oh, sorry. Right.
The volume is not great.
It's not great. What's the volume now? Is it still low? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure why that is. So you ask yourself the question, how do I educate people into real estate? So the moment you educate them, it's now very easy for them to then take your product and enrich themselves. So by blessing them, you're blessing yourself. And by blessing yourself, you're blessing them, basically.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate with that. I mean, I know when I started off, it was more of the ones who have had issues, the default, the CCJ, and mainly a lot of diaspora clients who maybe didn't understand the system here as well as maybe how things were back in Africa. Because in Africa, people literally just own their homes. Not many people do it via borrowing. They build their properties from scratch and they don't have a debt. The majority of homeowners in Africa, you build your house and you don't take out a mortgage for it. Whereas here, most people need some sort of financing for it. So that's amazing. And I like the Okri Property Show, by the way. So it's getting better and better. Well done. Yeah, that's amazing. So, Godwin, what 3 strategies would you give someone right now to say, you know what, this is the best position that you are in. The only way is up. What 3 tips? I know you've been giving us nuggets along the way. Are there any other things so earlier you mentioned that, you're a man of faith, you pray. So I believe your faith has helped you as well. And I think the Bible is such a positive story. It's a story of people who had so many lows, the jobs of life, the Samsons who failed, the Davids who kept falling but rose up. So it's so inspirational. Personally, I think that's a great book. But yeah, what strategies could you give people out there to say, you know what, we're in the best time of opportunities when you're down? What 3 keys can you give people who are listening to us today? And I'm going to ask you guys, please ask questions for Godwin. He's here at our disposal. So, let's use the time wisely. But yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks for that. Well, my 3 top tips. My number 1 tip is surround yourself with positive people. That's my number 1 tip, because the people you surround yourself with will determine your altitude eventually, either up or down. So surround yourself with positive people is my first tip. My second tip is leave a footprint on this earth. How do you do that economically? What you do is find out what people want, give it to them, and charge them for it.
Mm.
Yeah? Find out if there's a problem. Find out what the problem is. Find a solution to that problem and charge people for it. That's my second tip. And my third tip, of course, is be a blessing unto others. Be blessed, be good to others, give. Those are my three key tips.
Awesome. Thank you for that. You know, when you mentioned about the second one, I just thought of a lady who's she used to do buying and selling, buying clothes in China, and obviously during the pandemic, it was like people weren't interested in clothes. If anything, we were throwing away our clothes because we realized we have no events to go to, based in America. But she since then moved into buying PPE, and she has made a killing. She's a nurse, and this has been the best time of her life financially, by just diversifying. Nothing. Yeah, I love fashion. I like my Gucci, but hello, it's clothing. What clothing is required now? Can I supply that? And it's been such an amazing game changer for their business. So finding out what people want and not forcing oneself to just keep doing the same thing when it's not needed anymore, because a lot of businesses, I think, have actually gone defunct, isn't it? There are a lot of industries that
there were lots of businesses that are standing dead. They are standing, but they're not really living because they've not created. The owner of those businesses have not been creative enough. You have to bring life to the business. If the product is failing, think of another product very quickly. Be creative. Research that product and go into that product. Find out what you normally do is just find out what the problem. There's a problem. I mean, for example, in mortgages, for example, one key problem is people's bad credit. Bad credit. Well, find a solution to that problem and charge for it. But solve people's problem would generate you money, just like Bezos did. Jeff Bezos. He found out that owning a shop is too expensive. So he created Amazon. In other words, you could shop in the cloud. You could buy all your stuff in the cloud. Can you imagine? Today is worth 112 billion.
And he got divorced, didn't he, not long ago, and split his assets with his wife, and didn't. It was quite amicable, It was like, yeah, that's fine, Many people, when they're going through this challenging situations, because it's not enough in the pot, it becomes even more of a stress, isn't it?
That's correct. That's correct. He went through that, but all these great people go through difficulties.
Yeah.
All these great people, they go through difficulties. Is what they do afterwards. They find a way to get out of it. They don't just lie there. They find a way. And that's why these people are great. These are great people.
Yes, wonderful.
So that's basically it. I mean, for example, just very quickly, I'm fascinated by the story of Michael Bloomberg. I mean, Michael Bloomberg, he studied at Harvard Business School, but he was made redundant in 1981. He was made redundant in 1981. Today is worth $50 billion. Now, guys, tell me that. Because he found that there was a gap in the market. There was nobody was giving innovative market systems. Nobody was talking about stocks and shares to the common man in the street. He found a way to do that through Bloomberg. Now worth 50 billion. So find a niche in the market and charge for it.
Wonderful. Now, people who are out there who are not connected, because one of the things you said is surround yourself with positive people. What would you suggest? What would you recommend? I'm an introvert, and the business I was doing is quite, it was fine for me to do it as it is. I don't like stepping out of the box. Do I really have to network to make it? I mean, I love networking. I love meeting different people, and I've found it beneficial. But what are the ways of getting out there?
Well, you have to network. You cannot live in your hacienda watching television. That will get you nowhere. You have to network. Remember I said, surround yourself with positive people, positive business. Go to meetings, go to conferences, seminars, because that's the way you get information and you disseminate information. When information is disseminated, you're getting these new ideas coming through. And you get these new ideas, you go home, you think it through, think of how it fits into your business, and then innovate your business. You can't do it any other way.
Yeah.
So you can't be introverted. You have to be extroverted. You have to go out. You have to listen to news, go to seminars, conferences. It's like your conference in Milton Keynes, Tendayi. Things like that. You come to your conference, things like that. Watch the Okri property show. These are things that would educate you. Because how else would you know? How else would you improve? Even I go for continuous professional development, CPD. I also have to do it. Everyone has to do it. Because that's the way you improve and you grow all the time. So that's my answer to that.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Godwin. Does anyone have any questions, Paul? Does anyone have any questions that they want to ask? As we have him here, Godwin does mentoring and help people hold their hands in the real estate, business. If you want to buy a house that's run down, you help people source properties, do them up, and sell them on.
Yes. If you're a first-time buyer, you want to climb the ladder, the property ladder. We could be of assistance to you. If you have a bit of money and you want to do joint venture, we will hold your hand and show you how to do it properly. Because joint venture has to be understood. You have to understand it. Don't just go into it. It takes, there's a certain agreement that has to be drawn. There's a certain bank account that has to be opened. A certain appointment. You've got to be done properly. Otherwise, you could mess it up. So it's a quick way to make money, and it's also a quick way to lose friends. So if you have a bad credit, you have to do something about it. Don't just go around saying, "Oh, I have a bad credit." Don't sing that song. Say, "I have a bad credit, and I'm doing something about it."
Working on it.
So that's what we do, and that's why we assist for them to climb the property ladder.
Awesome, Godwin. Thank you so much for your time. Gosh, someone saying this interview's been mind-blowing. I think you've given us so many nuggets in this short space of time that I believe will give someone who's out there a stepping stone to say, you know what, I may be in the pit, but this is not the end of me. I will rise. I'm able to get up from here. This is the best position to be because the only way is up and out. There is money. You were speaking trillions of pounds of running in various economies. Just literally, I remember years ago, just having a look and saying, okay, which industry has the most money? Can I take a little siphon and put my little filter there and take some of that, tap some of that GDP out? You know what I mean? So do the research, see how you're wired, see what your, unique selling points. What have you got in your hands? What skills have you got out there? There is ways to diversify. There are ways to shift. You can move markets. The world has been opened up. It's a global platform out there. You were doing what you're doing. It's not needed in your nation, but perhaps you can switch nations. So you've given so many.
True. And it's important for those small business, for SME. Let me just quickly leave this quick nugget for you. So this nugget, very important nugget, and it's how you search and deal with your market in this difficult moment. The first thing is, just as it's defined in Harvard Business Report for people just starting out. First thing is find out the unmet needs. In other words, find out and say to yourself, what is it that people are complaining about? Then try and find a solution to that problem and then charge for it. So that's number one. Number one is called your unmet strategy, right? The second one is the competitive strategy. A comparative strategy, beg your pardon. The comparative strategy is number two, which is for SMEs. Say to yourself, do I have a comparative advantage? Remember Adam Smith in his book Inquiring into the Wealth of Nations. He was writing in the 19th century, and he says that if you have a comparative advantage over your competitor, that's your market. So if I'm an estate agent and there's other estate agent, what am I comparative? What am I unique? What am I known for? If I'm known for HMO, selling HMO, I'll forgo all other things and just concentrate and make my name on HMO.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm selling single flats for Airbnb, for example, that's my comparative advantage. So number two is know what your comparative advantage is, what your unique advantage is, and just concentrate on that and market it and tell the world that you're different in this angle. That's number two. Number three, cost manipulation strategy. The cost manipulation strategy is if I'm in a market where there are other people doing exactly what I'm doing, in order to ensure I'm not subsumed by this number of my competitors, I will use the cost manipulation strategy. In other words, I'll reduce my cost, even if it's close to my borderline, and make a lot of noise about it. Because in doing so, people is alerted to the cost advantage, and then I get the customers and make a profit as a result. And the final one for SME is your market implementation strategy. Again, this is coming out of Harvard Business Strategy. And they say the market manipulation strategy is that learn and know and master how to market your comparative advantage position. So you have to market either it's a streamline marketing or a pyramid marketing, whatever it is. Have a way to market, and there are many ways: informal marketing, Twitter, Facebook, and all of that. Informal or formal way of marketing, advertisements in the papers. If you don't have money, use the informal one. Facebook, you could now it's cheaper to market. So once you master your comparative advantage and your cost advantage, and you know your unique cost, market in an informal way. Facebook, Twitter, let people know about you. And after then, Bob is your uncle. The world is your oysters.
Wow. Thank you so much. I know this has been amazing, Godwin. Thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us today. Always appreciate the wisdom that you bring to the table, the positivity. And I know many people are going to go out there, heads tall, heads high, ready to implement some of these things. They're not just hearers of the word, but they are doers of the word. And that's where we see the change and the shift. And, ready to turn around the curveballs that have been thrown by this pandemic and rise from there. Thank you so much, Godwin. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Please share this with your family, your friends, people who are complaining about things not quite working out. Tell them there's a way out. There's a way out. This is the time for you to rise. So thank you so much again, Godwin. Thank you, listeners, for listening.
Okay, all the best. My pleasure. Goodbye.
Bye.